back, folks, once again to the Path to Recovery podcast, episode 31 today. The title's going to be the Chooser. Choosy mothers choose Jeff. Remember that commercial? That's alright if you don't. You might be under the age of 40 if you don't remember it, but that's okay. Before we get into the heavy details, please like and subscribe to this podcast, and please, by all means, share it with someone you know that could possibly benefit from it, because it may be that catalyst that changes that person's life. So, what am I referring to when I say be the chooser? As usual, it can be very simple. You actually get to choose the outcome of every moment, every day. Every moment of every day of your life is filled with choices, and these are choices you get to make. We need to see this as an empowering moment, not a bummer or like a hardship. The understanding of how we get to make choices allows us to see that we are in control of our daily actions and our behaviors, and that there's no outside power that can choose for us. No one can make us do anything. We're not controlled by anyone. Yes, as an infant, when you were a baby and your parents and guardians made lots of choices for you, trying to teach you how to make choices on your own. But once you're old enough to make your own choices, that's somewhere around 1 to 2 years old. We will be in control of everything we do every day, all day. Now that is power. The interesting part is that we eventually have to start being more aware of the possible outcomes with each choice we make. If you've ever watched the first Spider-Man movie, the one with Tobey Maguire in it, and there was a scene where he was talking to his Uncle Ben, and his uncle said something like this: "With great power comes great responsibility." Now that we start to understand that we have the power, the question will then be, what do you do with it? So earlier I used the phrase, we get to make choices. I need you to fully understand that statement, because you need to know the difference between thinking you have to make a choice versus knowing you get to make a choice. No one but us can determine how our moments turn out. That's sometimes a hard truth to grasp for some folks, but just hear me out here, and you may just realize that it is the truth. Let me break it down for you to make it more understandable. When you wake up in the morning, you immediately ask yourself a question. Do I get up or do I stay in bed? Right? You may not express the choice like that, but you do make the choice. It's kind of an unconscious choice. Do I get up or do I stay in bed? A lot of people think that every day because they prefer to sleep rather than get up and work. But it's actually a deep choice. Then, when you get that question in your head, you get to make the choice of getting up or staying in bed. Now, either choice produces a different outcome, guaranteed. If you stay in bed, you might pull the covers over your head and go back to sleep, but then again, it's a choice you get to make. Maybe I don't want to pull the covers over my head. That's a choice. If you do get up, you then get to make a choice of how you get up. Do you stick one foot out at a time? Do you stick both your feet out? Or do you just jump out with both feet and get going? Now, when you get dressed, you're riddled with choices. What socks do I wear, if any? How about the shoes I have? Which ones am I going to wear today? What clothes? What hairstyle? What clothes style? What fragrance do I wear, if I have any deodorant or fragrance? Are you going to eat breakfast or do you grab a snack on the way? You kind of get the idea. Everything we've done from the moment we get out of our dream, and yes, our dreams are choices too, but we're not talking about that. As soon as you wake up from your dream state and you open your eyes, you get your mind in a cognitive readiness for the day, you begin to make absolute choices constantly throughout the day. You get the idea, right? However, we've been so kind of assumptive in our lives, using our patterns of routine to just take us through the day and to take for granted all the thousands of choices we make each day. If you ever really wanted to know why you did something or why something happened, all you have to do is turn back the clock one moment at a time to kind of review each choice you made and how the result came to be, which will ultimately show you how the way to making healthier choices for healthier outcomes. I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but I use a concept called be the fly on the wall. This is exactly what I'm getting at, folks. Rewinding your day, or just that moment, is as simple as pretending you're a fly on the wall during that precise moment, and to open your mind to the memory of that moment. Now, everything that happens to us every day is captured in our brains, yet we immediately prioritize each moment and keep the things we want to hold on to at the top of the list, at our short-term memory. And the things we want to forget about, we push them way back to the bottom of our long-term memory and hopefully never come up with them again. Just because we set those forgetters at the bottom doesn't mean we lose it. The brain doesn't generally work that way. Yes, there are brain traumas that could prevent this from happening, but we're talking about the majority of us in our average life. So if the brain captures everything, it's highly likely that we can recall all of everything. It's a matter of learning the skill or the how-to, and that's where the fly on the wall comes in. I'll try to quickly review the concept, okay? Let's say that you had like an argument with someone special and it ended up with some harsh words and maybe some real difficult emotions to cope with. You just struggled all day to work through it, and you really wanted to resolve it. You wanted to heal it. The first thing I would ask you to do is find your way back to the beginning of the moment of conversation that went bad. You'll have to work a bit for this, because finding the moment before things went bad is 10 times more challenging than finding the hurt or the pain of that moment. We tend to focus on the extremes rather than the small details, but it's important for us to start learning how to focus on the details. When you have that moment in your mind, all I want you to do is apply that fly on the wall concept and bring yourself out of your eyes and be the eyes of the fly on the wall, watching everything that takes place and hearing everything that was said. I want you to pay close attention to the body movements of the other person involved. Try to recall exactly what they did, how they moved, if they folded their arms or if they used like a defensive posture. Maybe they tried walking away, but you didn't let them. Now, try to focus on their face during the conversation. See if you notice their face getting red, hot and boiled. Or maybe they have twitches like nervous habits. Try to see what they're doing specifically. Maybe their eyes tend to look elsewhere instead of directly at you. You're actually trying to find the emotional and physical patterns of the person involved with you. Patterns of emotions, physical reactions, use of specific words. All of these patterns are also known as trigger points. I've also mentioned this before, but trigger points can come in a variety of different levels, and they carry completely different emotions behind them. One trigger is the smell of cookies baking in the oven. Now, this doesn't sound like it's a trigger, but it truly is. Triggers aren't always negative. Triggers are positive and negative. They're everything in between. The smell of those cookies kind of triggers the endorphins, or it triggers an emotional connection to something. Yeah, it's something wonderful, but it is still a trigger. Here's an example of a more common understanding of a trigger point. When you see your partner trying to stand up taller when you're arguing in an attempt to posture themselves to like a power position, which you may not notice they do it, but you react to it almost unconsciously. Maybe you either stand tall with them and decide to butt heads, or sometimes we shrink down and become submissive and just let them take over the conversation. These more negative emotional trigger points are where the healing will occur most of the time. You don't really have to heal from baked cookies. Those chocolate chip cookies, there's no healing involved. Well, you might have to worry about losing some weight, but you know what I'm saying. Emotionally, that's not a healing trigger. That's a happy trigger. So in the argument, you may see that you were defensive, or you tried walking away and your partner just kept coming at you. The idea is to be aware of everything from both sides of the conversation. You got to try and find as many moments that took place that led you down the path to a negative result. Each of those moments carried a choice. You made choices that took you to the next moment. Though choices sometimes feel like there's no other option, there tends to be many choices available, but in the heat of the moment, we tend to not see all those choices, and we simply go with what we react to naturally. We call those the patterns of our behavior. Now, there's more than one option to every choice. So here's an example of seeing like 1, 2, or even multiple choices at any given moment. Let's say there's an argument happening, like we were talking about before, and your partner decides to call you a name, and it's a name that they know just drives you nuts. Some people see just one choice out of that. we want to call them a name that they despise more, because we tend to see it as, when I hurt, I'm going to make others hurt more, so that we don't have to cope with our own pain. Some people end up just seeing two choices out of that moment of emotion. They call them the name that they despise more, or they shut down and not say anything more. This is more known as the fight or flight concept. If you don't see victory for yourself, give up. It's kind of a very all or nothing living. If I can't win, I'll just sit back and lose and let it happen. Now, there's another part that some people end up being able to see multiple choices. People that allow themselves to learn more skills and create a skill set of coping, they can tend to see more choices before they blurt something out. They can see the choice of, well, I can call them a name, or I can shut down, or maybe I can tell them that the name calling kind of hurts. We can then explain why the name calling hurts. How about we ask them to calm down and not use names? Or we could always walk away or run away. You get what I'm saying? There's more than one choice to every scenario. We just need to learn how to see them. It comes down to what I call as a skill set that we learn that makes the choice. We hope it can be the choice most advantageous to everyone involved. It's kind of a choice for a win-win situation instead of a win-lose. Or even worse, a lose-lose. In other words, when we get into a confrontation, we have the ability to walk away from that confrontation with both people feeling like they won something. Or we can have someone steamrolling somebody else. One person wins, one person loses. Or we can just get into the name calling and nobody ends up winning. Everybody's in a hateful anger, distrust, and all sorts of other emotions. So it's important to know that we have choices. It's a matter of learning those choices and applying those choices in every moment of every day. Now, if we had better coping skills, emotional moments could be handled more easily, and our choices would end up presenting a healthier result. Like your boss criticizing you at work. You have options, you have choices. How do you respond to it? How about traffic jams, roundabouts? How about someone cutting in line at the grocery store? You even have to deal and cope with the death of someone, or maybe strong moments of anger and despise, just arguments. The list goes on. There's tons. Every moment of every day brings us choices. If we had better language skills, we could choose to more clearly express to someone what we feel, think, or what we see. Using the right words to describe how we felt. Communicating with people at work in a more clear way so that they're not guessing what we're trying to get at. How about your social media posts? If all you do is just blurt it out and type it out and then send it, so many people are going to read that in so many different ways. We as humans tend to read everything we see with emotion attached to it. So if you're somebody that just wants to post a fact, people are going to try and see your emotional intent behind it. So it's very important that we choose the proper words that help express what we're trying to get across. So sometimes in this world of choices, I tend to try and use this analogy of someone having a gun to your head and how we think we have only one choice. Now, I know this is an extreme situation, but the absolute truth is we have more than one choice. The outcome of those choices may not be as good as others, especially when someone has a gun to your head. You either submit, accept what they're doing, or you try to fight and survive, but the truth is we still have choices. Nobody controls what we do, what we think, what we say, and especially how we behave. So why do we have to overthink this concept at all? The truth is, folks, we don't. That's the whole point. We're trying to reach a point in your healing that lets you remove unnecessary steps in life that tend to create negative outcomes and replace them with the healthier end results. Changing our patterns of behavior requires us to change our patterns of thought. And our patterns of thought require us to ensure that our belief system is in a balance with good intentions. Everything we do is a direct result of what we believe. What we believe directs our core values. Those things we hold dearest to us. Those core values direct what we think. Then what we think stimulates those emotions inside us. And then our emotions create the behaviors, like what we say, what we do. Now, keeping this simple, we basically have to ensure that our belief system is ingrained with our best intentions to be like a good person and to do good things as often as possible every day. And when we do that, when we have our belief systems integrated into us with that mentality, our actions every day are going to reflect that. Finding our old patterns and rebuilding them from unhealthy to healthy patterns is a critical piece. If we can remove those unhealthy patterns that we were talking about before, if we just remove them, we'll have such an easier time rebuilding our healthier patterns. Think about it this way. If your old pattern is cringing when someone curses at you, but you've recently turned it into a pattern of saying something like, that really hurts when you curse at me. I wish you wouldn't do that. Now, it would stand a better chance at producing a healthier result because you're going to take probably the possible anger in a situation when they're choosing to curse at you. You could choose those responses we talked about before, or you could just say, you know what? Man, that really hurts. Can we lower it down? Can we calm down and maybe get through this conversation without throwing names at each other? So changing a conversation into that is going to stand a better chance at producing a healthier outcome. But we do have to ensure it's a pattern, guys, not a fly-by-night reaction, as I call it. Now, what does that mean? It means that you've practiced it and believe that it's the best response you can have for that situation. A fly-by-night response would be if you said that statement once, and then the next time they cursed at you, you went back to the cringing. It's called commitment. Fully committing to the change. Your pattern has to be a pattern, not a fly-by-night response. Think of a practical pattern as what it takes a child to learn how to use the potty instead of a diaper. That's practiced pattern and not fly-by-night reaction. Fly-by-night reaction is you're telling your child to sit on the potty and pee. Then later on that day, when you know they probably have to pee, you don't put them on the potty and tell them to try. You just tell them, well, don't pee in your diaper. Don't pee in your diaper. It's getting a practice pattern. Bring them to the potty several times a day so that they understand when they sit on this potty, that's when they pee. So the moment when they do pee sitting on the potty, they're elated, they're happy, they're excited. You get excited with them. You give them a nice treat. Tell their parents about it. Tell their siblings about it. Tell everybody that your child just peed in the potty. Make them know that that is a great thing and that every time they try it, it'll become a practice pattern. That's how we learn to use the bathroom. We just don't see it this way. We just know it as a routine. That routine is called a practice pattern. By the way, folks, I'm going to pull this back a little bit. If you get into a situation that someone disrespects you to the point where they're cursing at you and they're doing it often, you may want to strongly consider finding someone else to spend time with. That's just a thought. All right, so making a new pattern requires a new choice. Just like I said, the pattern process is going to require some dedication, some time. But making a new pattern means that you have to create a new choice. You're going to have to choose to create healthy patterns. Now, that's going to actually entail you to believe that the healthy patterns will change your life for the better. Now, if you don't truly believe that healthier patterns can change your life for the better, they're not going to. You have to believe that it's going to be a change in your life. By putting time and effort into making healthy patterns, that's going to create a truly healthier life and a happier life. It's going to be a full commitment. It must be a choice that you want to make deep within your heart and soul. You're basically asking yourself to choose the choice of healthier life patterns. You need to be the chooser, just like the title. Take responsibility that every moment of your day is based on your choices and is not driven by an outside influence. Do you want to change? Do you want to feel in control? Do you want healthy outcomes? Or do you prefer chaos and the things that don't go your way? It's time to make a choice, folks. Be the chooser. Thank you very much for listening in, folks. I appreciate your time and effort, your energy, your love, your consideration for listening and growing and healing, and I'm glad I can be a part of that with you. God bless you all. Thank you very much for being a part of this podcast. I look forward to sharing more information with you in the future.